Hey, what's up, guys? Froze up for a second. I'm Ramsey White, and we're gonna be kicking it with the combat crew. I will be joined by Miles the Black Santa Amos, who joined me in the commentary booth last night.
Ho, 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 you already know what's going on, Combat Night fans. The best, and I mean the best promotion in the state of Florida right here at Combat Night, live martial arts. What's going on?
Man, so we had some exciting fights last night. It was a long night. I felt like we started at like 4 and we didn't get out of there till like 11:30. It was a long night of fights, but man, we had
Yeah,
some.
went to it wasn't just like a lots of quick, fast knockouts, and even the fighters who did have finishes, it was still good up until that point. It wasn't like, to me, no fight was too lopsided or disappointing. Like some fights, they went back and forth, and then oh man, a surprise finish or something like that.
Yeah, very, very well evenly matched card, and the fights that were, went to decision were pretty dynamic and explosive themselves. They were all like, really hotly contested. So, and it was fun. Costume contest was fun. You look great as Maui.
Yeah. Presidential candidate, former president, made an appearance.
That was fun. That was interesting to just have that experience of people interacting with that kind of like polarizing character. It's like,
Yeah.
people are like, hell yeah. It's like, I'm not really him.
I mean, from afar, you never know if you forget your glasses at home, sitting in general admission. You didn't pay to get those VIP seats, then maybe, you might have thought something.
The wig was on point. All right. So started the night. Let me look through my notes. Started the night, we had some great amateur fights, and right off the bat, the one that jumps out to me was I just mixed my notes up. Was Destiny Perez versus Sienna Parocha. And let's see if I can pull us up some of that footage to have a look, because that was a pretty quick fight, and we're probably going to be able to
watch the whole thing.
thing. All right, I got our volume down. So she came out, rocked her with that left, pounced on her, cinched the neck up, and she was not. And she put her to sleep.
And it was really the punch that's what did it.
It really was. Big statement, she made with that that type of MMA. That was her amateur MMA debut.
Yeah, we've seen her in the Combat before. In kickboxing, she's had 2 kickboxing appearances, like you mentioned before, last night. One against Stone Cold Stephanie Calderon. So anybody who stands in there with her toe to toe, in my opinion, definitely has some big cojones, as they say. Like, she stood toe to her, and then truthfully, the only I think it could have went on even more. She was stumbled, but she was just resting after watching back, looking at that fight. She was just resting, but she didn't know okay, maybe I need to have my hands up. That's what the referees want, hands up. But she was just there, all right, come on, let's go. And then the referee waved it up. She was like, you could even see, like, what are you talking, like, yeah, she got me, I was stumbled. So who knows if she would have kept her hands up versus here, how that that fight ended up going. I wouldn't be later on down the line, maybe probably 2026, we'll see the two of them pro MMA.
Yeah, that was a fantastic fight. Some other fights from the amateur undercard that stood out, despite maybe not having finishes, was obviously the undercard main event between Dan O'Neal and John Morea. That was an absolute.
He definitely has surprised me, just how he came out there. Because I'm not gonna lie, when I saw they matched him up, they gave him a title shot, I'm like, oh man, John Morea, man, he might just walk through him, and he did not at all. Daniel, man, he stood there toe to toe with him. I don't know what he did, during this fight camp, man, but you definitely have seen him, improve tremendously. My hat's off to him. I can't wait to see what comes when he comes back, even for another fight with us for Combat Night. Like, and this is what I like to see, being now on the outside, being able to be essentially at every show now, commentating and ringing on stuff, that I get to see, the fighters progress on. Because before I was just like, Only when, Combat Night comes to Orlando, all right, it's a couple, jungle guys from my gym fight, then I'll get up and I'll go see it. But now I get to see, every fight, and whether a guy's from my gym, whether
every
I know
guy
him,
from every town.
yeah, I get to see them and, see the true, improvement of talent. So Daniel, man, shout outs to him, man. Win, lose, or draw. That was a tough fight, man. He didn't make it easy for John.
Yeah, as that fight progressed, we know John Morea is super technical, precision striker, and he comes out and Danny Boy just bum rushed him, rocked him good a couple of times in that first round. And
I was like, is he going to be able to keep this up the whole time?
And then in the second round, flipped the script. I want to say John Morea got bloodied on the lip in the first round, and then in the second round, it was a complete reversal, and John Morea just settled in with the precision striking, and I see Boss Man trying to get set up. But yeah, in the second round, John Morea, dialed in, but they just absolutely went berserk for the last, 2 rounds, and Morea pulled off a pretty hardly, fought, contested, bout there against Dan O'Neal. It was an impressive fight, fun fight to watch for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the undercard, the co-main event, Javante Yarborough versus Nico Burton. That's another one that went to decision, but those guys were throwing down for 3 hard rounds. Let me bring. What up, man? We see who made a stop by Bucky's on his way back down to Orlando.
Your boys in the house. Bucky Beaver. What it do?
I was driving like 3 a.m. I was like, let me just go straight home. Like.
So, Mitch, we were already talking about. We showed Destiny Perez versus Sienna Parocha, and we watched the replay of that knockout.
Can I watch it again?
Yeah. Just give me a second. Talk about it while I pull it back up.
It was only 5 seconds. We have enough time to it, but that's what I like to see. Some of these, maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I like when the kickboxers, transition over to MMA, because MMA is so much, more exciting, right? So like anytime, you see these young fighters, whether it's Stephanie Calderon and now Destiny Perez, whether it's Nomi Arello, like you see a lot of these, former kickboxers, Phoenix, eBay, kickboxing transition over to MMA. And sometimes you wonder, like, hey, man, is that power going to be able to translate? How are they going to handle, the grappling aspect of things? But you don't need to grapple when you can knock people out.
I got to ask you, how are you going to throw that disrespect to mention all those kickboxers that transitioned to MMA and not mention Seven Perkins?
Well, Seven Perkins, in my mind, he's always been an MMA fighter. It's just it took him a long time to get an MMA fight. And then truthfully, also, too, it was just waiting until he finally, turned 18 before we let him loose. But he's been training, since I know him, MMA since day one. It's just he's had more kickboxing fights to y'all. But to me, he's always been an MMA fighter.
He's nasty. But yeah, man, these people that are taking advantage of these kickboxing and Muay Thai bouts that we offer are at like a huge advantage, right? They're taking full advantage of this shit. And that's what you should be doing as an amateur athlete. You should put yourself in positions and situations that you're not comfortable, because maybe you are a grappler, or you lose some of the tools. And I love seeing, like you said, Destiny Perez, Stephanie Calderon. They fought each other as kickboxers. Stephanie got the win, but man, I mean, I think we got some really, like you said, Nomi, and all these ladies are doing it right, taking multiple kickboxing fights. Christian Colhane. I mean, there's so many.
All right, let me run this.
Yo, I did not expect this. This shocked me, and I'm one of Destiny's. I'm on the match with Destiny a lot in the training room. But I will tell you, that girl can crack. She hits like a man.
Sorry, my little feed is giving me some static. When it's ready, I'll pull it back up. But then we also went on to talk about the main event from the undercard, Dan O'Neal versus John Morea, and how spectacular that fight was.
Yo, hats off to both of those gentlemen. They kind of cross-trained both at Fusion a little bit, so they haven't necessarily crossed paths that I know of. But there was no, that was kind of a fight made last minute, and it ended up being, in my opinion, it was the fight of the night. It was the best fight on the whole card, amateur and pro. Both these boys really threw down and left it all in there. And like I heard y'all saying as I was coming on, or O'Neal really put it on early, and then John Morea really dug deep. And man, some head movement. It's so cool to see guys with less than 5 fights. I think now he has more than 5 though. But have that kind of head movement. It's just you don't amateur 5 years ago that wasn't happening.
Some other ones I wanted to point out were any other amateur fights. I was mentioning that there was a bunch of decisions, but all of those were hotly contested.
They were amazing. All of them were crazy fights.
Mike Bartolo and Aston Ricks.
Bartolo, man, he's like, I thought, I was like, okay, man, this is going to be a good, even match fight. We've seen Aston Ricks, wrestler, 2 different, body type styles of fighting. The tall and lanky versus the swole up, wrestler stocky. I was wondering, how well his muscle, strength, endurance was going to be able to, sustain, the constant quick movement of Aston Ricks. But he didn't need to go, all 3 rounds because he just held him on tight and just ragdoll him. Basically, I was like, whoa, like.
Yeah, it was pretty. Yeah, it was pretty cool too to see Bartolo because he's grown a lot in the short period of time that he's been training and fighting. His last fight, his stand up, you could even see he looked very like, ugh. And this fight, he looked comfortable. We didn't see a lot of his stand up because he got to the ground and just Aston defended a lot. It was a very, very high paced, short fight, but Aston did a lot of work to defend. But Mike was just, chipping away, getting little pieces.
We'll come back to that. Here, we'll have a look now at this Perez Parocha finish.
Right off the rip, low, high. And then follows it smart ground and pound, knowing the girl's a high-level jiu-jitsu player and didn't hesitate at all. No hesitation.
And all the way to sleep.
And her opponent is no slouch. Her opponent is a high-level grappler, has done quite a few PKBs with Rich Grindle. Man, unfortunate. Like, again, type of fight I wish I could have seen more. I wanted to see more, with it being both their MMA debuts. But hats off to Destiny, getting in there and literally the first punch that landed up top, it was rough.
Fracture.
It was rough.
I have this other one queued up too. It's right about it's a scramble between the fight you're just talking about, Mike Bartolo and Aston Ricks.
Man, yeah, Aston kept up the whole time. He didn't make it easy. He just kept on moving his back, his hips, his side up, and like moving around. But hats off to Mike Bartolo. He was just always just one step there, sticking with him.
And honestly, like, Mike's a wrestler, but this is jiu-jitsu. There are so many moments where a wrestler would have lost their op in the scramble, or would have missed putting in a hook, or would have missed the transition to the back or the mount. And man, Bartolo looked amazing on the ground. You would have, if you asked me, it looks like a jiu-jitsu guy. Doesn't look like a wrestler to me. It looks like a jiu-jitsu guy, which is saying a lot considering that Mike hasn't been doing jiu-jitsu very long. He's an animal, man. He's a very interesting guy, unique guy, but he's a real one.
He's a monster. He's massive.
Yeah.
I mentioned during the commentary last time, Aston Ricks, he had said like, I'm going to bring him over right in front of you guys and finish my opponent in front of you guys, and he did that in his last fight. And in this fight, he was right in front of us whenever he got finished. He turned around and he looked at us and he was like, and it was in front of
y'all. Aston's, he's a great kid. He was undefeated as well. It was a great fight to see those two, throw down. Even though Aston lost, I saw some development in Aston as well, the way he was able to defend and stay out of trouble. And then his physique, he looked like he's filling out. He's like, getting his man body. He also channeled his inner Phil Rowe in this fight. I feel like he looked like a love child between Phil Rowe and Lucas Alexander. It was very funny to see. From behind, I thought, Phil, And I was like, no, it's not Phil.
Yeah, he had the dope high top going on.
Don't turn off my
um,
AC.
Aston's watching us right now. He chimed in. Yeah, we love you too, man.
Yeah, I know he'll bounce back. Like some people, how they lose, what do they do the way that they bounce back? But I definitely know that Aston, we're gonna see him again.
Yeah, I mean, yo, Aston is one of my favorite fighters. I'm not saying that because he's on the stream, um, but you guys all know I love guys that entertain. Every time their name's called, they have something funny to say, something funny to do. When they're fighting, they're having a good time. Right after the fight, Aston came right up to me and let it be known. This ain't the last time you're going to see me. Like, I'll get better. I'll be back. And that's the kind of attitude, especially in these young fighters that are learning on the amateur scene and coming up. That's the kind of attitude you got to have if you're going to be successful in this sport. Because just look at it. How many guys that actually go undefeated their entire career? You're going to have to deal with losses at some point in time, and it's how you deal with those losses and how you bounce back that really define you as a fighter.
Yeah, it's better now to take those losses here in your amateur career than in your pro career. A lot of times you'll see, a guy go 5-0, 6-0 in his amateur ranks, and then turn pro and lose within his first couple of pro fights. Because like, what adversity did you go through as an amateur? Did you really learn anything if you just wash everybody in the amateur ranks?
Very true.
And we'll transition to talking about the pro card. It kicked off with a great fight between Romelo Union and Michael Tovar. Romelo making his debut, had a handful of fights with us, champion in a couple promotions, hard fought contests between those guys. And I thought Romelo really showed, some good versatility and, big cut he delivered with, I think it was a step in elbow or something onto the cheek of Tovar. That was a war.
Yeah, Romelo definitely not, I wouldn't say surprised me because I always knew he was talented in watching his fights, but I was just interested to see how is he going to face adversity with someone who has 4 professional fights over. You got a debut guy facing a guy who already has 4 in the bag, so it's like, and he didn't let that get to him whatsoever. I think a couple of times, truthfully though, I was talking to him afterwards. I was like, you could finish him, right? Just a little bit more volume when they had him up against the cage. I was like, yeah, man, no. And I was like, but at least you got the dub, man. Take some of that back to the gym, just continue to train harder for the next time we see you.
Yeah, man, I think we saw a lot of growth in Romelo. Think about just in May of this year. So talking about 5 months ago, Romelo got pretty dominated by an opponent on the ground. And then in Tallahassee, he came and out-grappled a very high-level guy out of Kaizen. Honestly, after I saw the fight in May, I was like, oh, man, maybe Romelo don't got it. And then he just put on a dominant display, cardio, grappling, showed out in August. And then making his pro debut, I was like, oh, man. It's always, especially when I don't see a guy in a training room or how hard they work, whatever, I just see them at the fights. I was like, man, this is a big step up. I was surprised that their team took Tovar. Richard Cox, the matchmaker extraordinaire, made that matchup. Tovar's got a lot of experience. And Romelo shocked me. Like, his performance shocked me. He was very, very smart, very calculated, fight IQ high. And for me, if you're going to make it, if you're going to get to the next level, if you're going to be one of the guys in the UFC, you got to show fight IQ, and you got to show fight IQ early. It's one of the hardest things to develop in the game. Some people have that natural intuition for it, and they just understand it. And Romelo is that guy. I'm sure he'll keep growing and keep getting better, but hats off to Romelo in his pro debut. That was a big win. Not a lot of guys are pro debuting against a guy that got 4 pro fights and coming off a knockout. And Tovar ain't fought nobody easy. If I'm being honest, on paper, this was probably Tovar's easiest fight on paper, considering, coming off, he just knocked out Shane Estrada in the last Duval card, who was 1-0 as a pro and had a very good amateur career. And he fought Daniel Wyatt, went to a decision with Daniel Wyatt. And Daniel Wyatt, 5-0 stud. Hats off to Romelo for that performance.
And the thing about it now is Romelo, as he had such a dominant performance over Veteran, it's like, okay, now who do you face now for your second, your second pro? That this will only make Richard Cox's job even more difficult. All right, who do I match this 1-0 guy with?
I'll tell you who I want to match him with. We'll talk about that later when we talk about his fight.
All right, our first finish from the evening came in the second pro bout. It was Jeremy Williams versus Chris Wingate, and we gonna watch that bad boy.
Yeah, this one was another quick one too.
Yeah.
We're surprised we were that, Wingate came out and initiated the takedown right away against Jeremy Williams, who is
A known
legit
grab.
on the ground. Yeah.
I don't know that he meant to initiate that. He did. I think he reached on that overhand and kind of just swam into the underhook and was like, "Oh shit, we're here." And Jeremy's a grappler through and through. So once they tied up, Jeremy was like, "I guess we're grappling." And
Quick transitions.
Wingate did a good job at defending and a good job at fighting off all of this stuff. Lasted a lot longer than I think a lot of guys would have lasted. But he really should have used the cage here. Should have used that pressure against the cage and make Jeremy scrunch up like an accordion. It's hard to finish submissions if your head's on that cage.
Yeah.
But it was like this. It was rapid fire as it was happening. It's so easy to talk about what guys should have, could have, would have done sitting right here. Whole different story when that adrenaline's pumping. I didn't get to see all the different. I love that Jeremy does like 3 or 4 different celebrations. It's hilarious.
Yeah, he emotes.
Just bumping, man. You just do whatever comes to your head.
Yeah.
And this is great for Jeremy because it allows him to continue to bounce back. He's one of those guys had a lot of hype, especially on social media. He had a 5-0 career, all 5 fights with Combat Night. Won the bantamweight championship belt over Latrell Wright, who also fought on this card tonight. And then all that hype train, and then he loses his pro debut. So some people, I know a whole bunch of the critics like, see, we told you. So what did he do? He came, right back when Combat Night came back to Orlando, back to he bounced back, got a win. Another one here, traveled up to Jacksonville, got another win. So I'm glad to see him, continue to improve, and get better every time we see him.
Importantly to note, all in the same year. He got finished in March. He fought again in August. All right. I see guys who think they can take a loss or even a win and take off a year. Like, yo, you're doing it wrong. You just are. Take it from somebody who did it. I fought once a year. I fought, sometimes I'd get 2 in a year, but like I was very, I just fight. And I was healthy. There's no reason I shouldn't have been fighting. And next thing you know, people always ask me like, "Oh man, at one point in my career, I was 8-2 before I fought and won championship." And people always ask me like, "Oh man, like why didn't you go to the UFC? Like why didn't you make it?" And it's like, well, I was fucking fighting once a year. I was being very slow in my career. And
like,
what happened?
Shit. So why you ask in the UFC? I hate when casual people are like, "Oh man," they come up to the desk or they call. Sorry to get off on a tangent, but that really just because working at a jungle, sitting at the front desk sometimes you'll be surprised, and we're right there on Colonial, so we'll get a whole bunch of random people would just come in and be like, "So who's your black belt instructor? Who's your this?" I say Ramsey White. They're like, "Oh, okay." Like I just be making up shit. How many? Who's your black belt there? Oh, how many UFC guys you have there and stuff like that? Like what days do you guys spar? So when people come and like you and try to ask you like, "You're in the UFC? You're not in the UFC?" Da-da-da. No, what do you? I saw you walk. You took the bus here up to the gym. Don't get me started. Like, well, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I've heard you say before, Miles, like, "Oh, guys come into the gym and they're like, when's your MMA class?" And you're like, "Well, our jiu-jitsu class is at this day and our kickboxing class is at this day, but you're gonna need to do those before you come to the MMA class."
Yeah, they just want to come in and spar and do MMA. Like, y'all got any UFC classes? Well, first off, it's not called the UFC. UFC is organization. I'm not gonna go to LA Fitness and be like, "Hey man, can I do some NBA today on the courts?" Like, no.
Another finish that happened on the pro card was another lightweight bout between Mikey Conlin and Daniel Miller. Mikey Conlin 2-0. Daniel Miller making his pro debut.
Man, well, I'll start by saying, Mikey missed weight for the 3rd time. It was only by 0.2. It was only by 0.2. But 0.2 is 0.2. Amazing performance. I was thinking that Mikey might not have the muscles because of how hard the weight cut was. But as you can see from that slam, he had all the muscles. Great job securing the back position here and going for the choke right away. Again, no fear, just like Dez. It's pretty funny how similar him and Dez's finishes are. They're actually really similar. But beautiful performance. Way to stay on that choke. Man, Miller was not giving it up. He went out on his feet. Hurt his
This was
knee.
a long choke.
Yes, they spun, and you could see it getting deeper every time. Like I'd see Miller's face again. I was like, oh man. There you see it.
Right there, he didn't tap.
Yeah.
But then the way he felt his knees back, I was like, oh. Even right there, he's still fighting it.
Yeah. He fought a lot longer. And, Chris McNochie said he went out and then he tapped. Chris said that, like, he was running to grab him because he went out. And then while he was out, he started tapping. He was like, yo, he did not tap. Like, he went out. And then he started, like, his like, a natural reflex came in and was like, get me the fuck out. But yeah, man, beautiful performance again. I want to see. I think Mikey's one of these guys that could potentially screw himself in the long run by them missing the weight and these little things. Because at the end of the day, again, guys, being active but also doing your job and doing it correctly, because that's what the UFC wants to see. They don't want to see miss weight on your Tapology, like weighting at this weight. They want to see you're weighing in the weight class that you're trying to fight in the UFC. And guess what? If you want to fight in the UFC, you're probably gonna have to make weight, not just make weight, but on short notice. Stephen Costello got the call at 162 pounds, and he had to make 135 in 10 days. So if you're not at least being close to your weight and you're not being on top of those things, it can come really hard and bite you in the ass in the long run.
Yeah, if you're an active, young, up-and-coming pro, there's no reason why you should, in between camps, be more than 20 pounds. To me, that's like the max that you should get above your weight class.
I give him 10 to 12% because I know every weight class is different. So I say 10 to 12% of whatever your weight class is what you can play with.
Another fantastic fight and great performance was by Tristan McGraw over Mark Warz. Mark Warz making his debut, and Tristan McGraw 0-1, and he just lost a really tough fight in his debut to Latrell White, who also fought on this card. And that was a battle, but Tristan McGraw looked really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, his strike was very slick. Like I was, that the both of them were back and forth, but it seemed like Tristan was just like always just one step ahead. Like granted, Mark was, still sticking in there, but it seemed like, quick draw McGraw, like he was just always just quick and he just came forward just a little bit, like I said, one step ahead every time. He was committing more to his strikes, in my opinion.
But yeah, man, I mean, Tristan's fought with us a lot. He's one of the few guys that never got a belt. He lost a close fight to Jacob Toledo. He got beat by Ramon Tavares. Like all these opportunities to win our belt, and he never did. And but he's so good. Like he wasn't fighting. He never fought bums for us. Everyone he's fought, Noah Williams, even Mark Warz. He's always game and always fighting tough dudes. I feel like a lot of times Tristan will find a way to lose. Like he'll just make a mistake or something. Someone capitalizes. That's what happened in the Latrell fight. But man, was he on point in this fight? He was very sharp. He was very composed and just fought a brilliant fight. Personally, I like both these guys a lot. I hated to see this fight happen in general because I really, really like both of them. I think they're both really good dudes. And I knew it was going to hurt. Like it hurt me to see Mark lose because Mark's just one of those guys like you want to see win. Like he's a good human being. Same thing with Tristan. So to see them two fight, I was like, Richard, why are you doing this to me?
It was I think I might have mentioned it to you. It's one of those interesting like MMA math things where it's like Mark beat Latrell beat Tristan beat Mark.
Yeah.
And Tristan is one of those fighters that has the distinction of like double digit fights with us. There was a couple of guys on the card last night that had that. He's got 10. That was I think his 11th time competing with us.
And there were a few guys on the card last night that have that.
Yeah. I think I was telling Miles right at the beginning of the broadcast, this was one of those like combat night fights cards where we got some guys making debuts, and then we've got guys that have been with us for a bit that were like headlining the amateur card, guys that have headline amateur cards were making pro debuts, guys that have pro'd with us a little bit were now headlining the pro card. And so it was really cool to just see that like tier progression for guys, that stay loyal with us.
Yeah.
Another good fight and finish from the pro card. Tommy Laipply versus Seth Dupuis. And we're just going to pick up in a portion of that. You know, Seth came out looking really good, hit him with a couple of good left hooks, and Tommy Laipply didn't like that and got it to the ground. And Seth is competent on the ground, but Laipply was doing work.
Seth made one little mistake.
Yeah, I don't even know Seth, but man, I felt bad because he was doing such a good job for the first, minute of that fight, and he got taken and then lost. I was like, damn, I don't know you, man, but I feel bad. Like, I feel bad.
Seth was a amateur champion with us, had a great amateur record, and tough fights. And there's where Tommy cinched in that guillotine and squeezed for dear life.
Yep. Seth is one of those guys that built the cage for us back when he was 16 years old, telling me like, "Oh, I'm gonna fight in this cage one day." And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, buddy. Fucking put that cage wall on." And he did, man. I love Seth. It's another one of those fights. Like, I don't know Tommy, no bad blood, Tommy, whatever. But like, I know Seth really well. My son is like a big fan of Seth. Loves Seth. I hated to see him, again, I want to see a fight play out some. I like to see the fights play out. And like you said, Miles, Seth was doing very well. Tommy was obviously doing better. Great finish. A really fun fact about that fight. Everybody cornering, they were all cornered by UFC. Everyone in the corner was a UFC vet. Billy Quarantillo fighting in Tampa later this year, December 14th. Ramon Tavares also fighting in Tampa, December 14th. Stephen Koslow, Trey Waters. 4 corners, 4 UFC guys. Pretty cool to see that. 3 Combat Night OGs.
And another bout, like we were just mentioning, we had a former amateur champion of ours versus another former amateur champion, and Alex Rogers and Ricky Chiappa, both making their pro debuts, both with about 5 fights with us each, and they threw down.
Yes. I got to be honest, another fight where I'm like, man, I just know both these guys so well. I have a lot of love for both of these guys, and I hated to see them fight. I've seen this fight cards are putting together, and I'm like, man, I'm just going to have a bad night no matter what. Like, he's not letting me have no fun this night. I feel like the fight IQ for Alex was lacking a little. He was doing better on the feet, and once the grappling started, he was cool with grappling. Like, he would be up against the cage and would finally fight and get him against the cage. And instead of breaking and like, all right, we're going to strike again, he just kept grappling. And you see a lot of guys do that, especially guys young in their career who kind of like a monkey see, monkey do. Like, oh, you're going to grapple? I can grapple too. And it's like, yeah, you can grapple, but you got to be always trying to go to your warehouse and what's winning the fight at that time. You can't just do what they want to do.
Yeah, just because it's MMA, you can dictate where you want to see the fight, go. If you realize that you're the better, striker there, well then, hey, just stand there and just strike, and all you have to do is just defend their takedowns. But if they, push you up against the fence and try to take you down, that doesn't mean, okay, now let me try to take you down. Let me show you that I'm better at what you're trying to do. No, show them that you're better at you. Like, that's all you need to do. And I think, like you mentioned before, if Alex, if he were to keep things standing, just break off and strike. Don't get, sometimes grapplers will, suck you into their game, like push you up against the cage, you rock with them, then they rock with you. You guys are going back and forth to eventually they get you down on the ground. It's no different than, say, for instance, like a striker. Sometimes a striker will draw you into their game and just keep popping you swinging, and then next both of you guys are swinging in the middle of the cage there, and that's essentially what they wanted to begin with.
And then an exciting fight that was a back and forth battle, but went deep into the 3rd round. We're going to pick up towards the end of that. This was Ernest versus Latrell White. Here, Latrell's already got him down. This is, like I said, this is kind of the finishing sequence. Latrell, like I mentioned before, is one of those guys that's fought with us a bunch of times. He's fought a bunch of tough guys. He's a wild man. Got bricks for hands.
Yeah, I think ultimately it's just like Mitch always mentions, the fight IQ and just experience. Latrell, both of these guys, I knew this was gonna. I figured this would go, the distance. Both of these guys are just straight up just dogs in there. And then I just figured, Andre Ernest had a little bit more, and what I've seen of some of his previous fights, just a little bit more cardio and just come forwards a little bit more. But then Latrell, he just has just way more experience, and I think that was able, the difference maker. He was just slow, and then but once he got things down to the ground, then you just see the sudden burst, the sudden explosion. I think from his amateur fights that have gone the distance, and you've seen his cardio, a little bit aware. I think here coming into his second, pro fight, he was able to realize, okay, everything, I don't have to, shoot in desperation and waste all my muscles and try to exert all my energy on these takedowns. I don't have to just stand there and just sling and bang, bang, bang. No, he was very cautious, very patient, I let Andre come forward. And then when things got to the ground, which is where I think, eventually Latrell wanted to go, then that's when you see just certain bursts of energy. It's like it just came out of nowhere for him to get the job done and finish him.
Yeah, man. I said all the time about Latrell. If you're gonna fight Latrell, you stand across from him. You better be ready to fight for 3 rounds because he's only been finished one time in his career. The decisions he have lost are all splits. Like he's not losing. Like he's not getting dominated. He's in the fight the entire time, and I knew that this Andre fight was going to be another like Miles said, it was gonna be a dog fight. I thought Andre was running away with the fight up until that 3rd round.
Yeah.
But again, Latrell's this guy you can't count out. I've seen him do it. He did it against Eric Rodriguez. He did it against Tallahassee.
McGraw. They fought.
Tallahassee 2-0 when they fought for the belt in Jacksonville. Marquise Simpson.
Oh
He
yeah,
did it against Marquise Simpson. That fight was it wasn't like dead. For sure, Marquise fight, but it was leaning toward Marquise, and then he ended up getting a TKO in the 3rd round. Latrell gets better as the fight goes on, and the pros are where he belonged. Like he's one of those guys. Didn't have a great amateur record, but I knew coming in as a pro he was going to do very well. He didn't have a bad amateur record either, but I knew that pro was going to fit him better because of the longer time period. And what I liked about this fight for Latrell, again, growth. He was more patient. He wasn't spending the energy like Miles said. And, he set up that takedown. He went for a takedown early, didn't get it, and kind of chilled on him. Like, all right, we're going to forget about that for a little bit. And then it surprised me even when he shot that takedown. It was beautiful, hands clasped, took him down. And, I've heard from multiple people who train with Latrell, you don't want him on your back. And he's proven that time and time again with us, just like y'all said, Tristan, the last fight with Tristan, he proved that. And then here against Andre. Andre's an athlete, bro. He ran track in college. He's an athlete. And once Latrell got them hips broken down, it was all she wrote.
I think at the beginning of that fight, maybe it was Miles that said, he was like, "Oh man, this is the hood main event," and it was like, don't be mistaken. Like when you go to the ground with Latrell, like that man is training jiu-jitsu. He is a student of the game, and he showed all of that versatility because, like I said, he's got power in the stand-up, and then once he goes to the ground, he's very competent there as well. So you have to beat Latrell, because even a couple of the losses he took as an amateur were super close decisions that were, I don't want to say controversial, just razor close.
Yeah, split decisions.
Yeah,
I want to see him and Jeremy Williams, fight as pros now. But it's just a matter of, is he going to come up, or is Jeremy going to drop down? Because Jeremy now is a little bit older. He's almost slowly approaching 30. So now your body is what it is. So now can he make 135? And now is Latrell willing to go up from 135 to 140 to 145? I'd definitely like to see those two.
They fought at 145 in the amateurs.
It was 145. It was. Okay, well then, there you go. I want to see them fight again.
And for me, there's a lot of fights I want to see after this card. You were talking about Romelo in the mix. Romelo's a 45er. And a little fun fact about Romelo doesn't cut weight. Romelo walks around at like 50, 52. And when he's in camp, he just naturally gets down to 45. He's vegan. So from what I understand about vegans, they can't cut as much weight as, say, somebody who's, eating meat. But I think Romelo can make 135, and I think he eventually finds a home at 135. Against Tovar, he looked a little small, and I thought that was going to play a factor into the fight. I thought Tovar was going to use his strength against him. Not the case. But yeah, I'd like to see Romelo and Jeremy Williams or Romelo and Latrell. Any of those fights kind of mixing together, I'd like to see them.
Another dynamic finish on the pro card, Russell Campbell versus Devin Paulk. And we're going to pick up right towards the end of that one. This is in the second round when he catches him with that big hook. Swarmed in for the finish.
It's like a check hook too. Like,
yeah,
he saw Russell.
I wonder almost, is he maybe right? Because I know some fighters who are right-handed, they do that. They stand southpaw. That way they're more powerful. Their right hand is leading, is leading the way. So I wonder if, the way that he was just able to drop him out of that southpaw with the lead hook, if maybe he's probably just really a right-handed fighter.
I would think so. He wrestled. He was a high-level wrestler coming up in high school. I don't know if he did some college or not too, but he also coached. And, in wrestling, a lot of times they tell you to stand dominant hand lead, like your lead hand is your dominant hand. So a lot of wrestlers that come over, that's why they're standing in their southpaw stances, because that's where they're most comfortable shooting. And a lot of times the strikers, they'll learn how to strike from there. That knockout was nasty. I missed it live. I heard, everyone going nuts, and I was like, I ran over to the cage and like, damn. I grabbed one of the guys. Let me see it. And I couldn't. It was so fast. I had to slow it down. Like, his hook was so fast.
It's lightning quick.
Yeah, but when you slow it down, we just posted a reel. His head, like, he hits his chin, and his head literally like goes all the way. Like, it didn't go through. It just stayed on his chin. It's like That
was a fight between a couple of guys that hadn't competed in a while. Russell had a much longer layoff than Devin, but Devin was also coming off a loss, and he was just looking to get back into that win column, and did so in dynamic fashion last night.
What's crazy is Devin has two of the most brutal knockouts ever seen in Combat Night history, fighting with us. And to be honest with you, last night was the first time I've ever seen Devin get in the cage and look comfortable. He's fought with us 10 times, decent record. Like, he's fought, one loss as an amateur and a pro, but he's never looked comfortable. He's always looked very, like, almost skittish, and like he's already draining his gas tank before he even throws the first punch. And then when he does start punching and striking, he'll ragdoll people, like, he's like, he goes crazy. And last night, it gave me very high hopes for the resurgence of Devin. He looked good.
Another highly anticipated fight was the ladies' fight at 135 pounds, Iceman Casser versus Kat Nelson. I'm just going to play some of the beginning of this one, because each round pretty much went the same way in a classic striker versus grappler matchup, where the striker comes out, Kat Nelson getting the better of the stand-up, and the grappler gets it to the ground and basically is able to maintain that control and pressure on the ground.
Yeah, I think this first round is the real indicative of how the fight went and why it went this way that it did. Kat did a pretty good job, I felt like, at defending this first takedown, and also kind of recovering from this moment. But then she does end up getting her down and getting her ankle. Kat ends up reversing it and getting up and ends up dropping her and goes into her guard to start punching her. Maybe she doesn't drop her. She hurts her enough that she goes for a shitty takedown. And instead of being like, get up, she goes into her guard, starts punching. The girl grabs her heel, and then it turns into this whole grappling thing that I don't think like ever needed to happen for Kat. Of course, Casser is like, this is where I want to be. But again, I know Kat is known for her kicks. She kicks a lot, but we all know that when you're fighting a grappler, somebody who wants to wrestle, kicking is like a chill out. We don't want to kick. We want to put these things on them.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. She should just stayed in the pocket and just continue to box and keep Jasmin, keep her at her range, because that's when she did it best. Because you can notice how when she started to tag her up, that's when Jasmin would get just try to charge in for the takedown. I tell fighters, man, when you're if you're a striker, you want to stay in, see where those, all those logos are. Stay away from the logos. You want to stay in the blue in that inner ring circle. Because the second that if you're backing up, and if I can see, I may not be able to see behind me, but I can see what's in front of me. So at a certain point, if I could, if I see that red line, then I know, hey, you know what, I need to circle out or something.
Yeah. And see right here, Casser's confidence is in the dirt right now. It just is. She defended a takedown. She got hit in the head. She's getting kicked. She's getting punched. She gets hurt in a second. But Casser's tough. Man,
yeah,
was
she was
tough.
so tough.
Also big. She's big for the weight class. But I think we're gonna see in just a second where she right there. She drops her right. Boom. Goes into her guard.
With her.
This is where the fight was lost. This moment when she dropped her, back up, make her get up. Now we're in this entanglement here with her knee in jeopardy. And again, turn and run. Just donkey kick, mule kick. Run from this like your life depends on it, And then I think from here it stays a grappling match for the rest of this round.
Yeah, I think she ends up. I think every single round she ended up on her back having Kat in peril, just defending chokes.
But if Casser if this moment never happens, if Casser never grabs the foot and Kat doesn't ever jump on top of her, who knows what happens? Because at that point, then she gets dropped. Kat makes her get back up. Where's her confidence? Right? It's like gone out the window. But man, it was beautiful. Casser's grappling was beautiful. She opened up every door she wanted just to trap Kat and like she walked her into where she wanted to go. It's very, very smart. Even here, she ends up getting the hook, the inside hook. And Kat should be trying to scoot away. I was watching it and I was like, oh my God, her grappling is next level. It's really good. Mendez brothers black belt. So.
And even in this first round, we actually didn't see as much handiwork from Kat as we did in the second and third rounds in terms of how the round started for her.
Yeah.
She was absolutely piecing her up on the feet. Even and here Ben Stark wasn't with us last night, but he was watching from home, and he said that body triangle from the back was like a beat trap, and she got that. I believe she got that locked in at the the end of every single round.
Yep, and it's very hard. Someone who knows how to use a body triangle, it's very hard to get out of that.
It affects you so much, like your stomach. You're just like, every time you go to take, all right, coach told me to relax, take a big deep breath, and it's just squeezing off your, just controlling your breathing, like, damn. And then if you can't breathe, then you're like, it's like you said before, like defeated. On the other end, every time, Kat, piece you up and strike, and when somebody drops you with strikes, and you pop back up, man. Every time you get dropped, you pop back up, man. You're a little bit defeated. No different than when, on the ground and somebody's on your back. It's like, I try to get up, and then they pull me back down. I try to get up, they pull me back down. You're like, shit, what I got to do? Like,
yeah. And that, it took, for Casser, no energy because she's a grappler. She's used to it. But for Kat, she's just depleting the gas tank. She's running her down. And then in the third round, I felt like Kat got wise to the kicks, and she stopped kicking as much, barely at all, and was really using her hands. And I was like, man, I thought we were going into a split decision. And then Casser shot a great. Kat got a little, watched her, messed up her range on the striking, got a little overzealous with it, and Casser ended up taking her down, perfectly timed takedown, and that's all she wrote. But up to that point in that third round, I thought, man, we might be going to a split decision because depending on how those judges scored the first round with a drop, and the striking and the defense, for most of the round she was doing very well. I thought we might be seeing a split decision, but Casser definitely sealed the deal with that last takedown and securing the position.
And that was the tail of the tape, so to speak.
Another one that I hated to see because, I love Kat. Like she's one of those. She's a good human being. I don't know Casser very well. She obviously first time she fought with us. I'd love to have Casser back. She showed a lot of grit and toughness out there and a lot of technical ability. And I think Casser's going to end up being the next level real soon. I won't be surprised. She knew what she was coming into. She knew she was coming to Kat's hometown. She was on the road. She knew Kat was a good striker. There was no, facade about that. And she put on a show, man. That's really impressive for what she did down here.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if after, like 2 more fights, when she gets to, 4-0, 5-0, that she's in the UFC on a contender series, especially at a women's division. Like they're so, they're so shallow. Like you get to 5-0, man, you get the call up just like that.
And we're making it to the last couple of fights. Our co-main event between Jordan Nash and Eddie Perez. Jordan Nash is as tough as they come. BKFC vet. Pretty much he's coming off of a few losses by submission. Eddie Perez Bruno, longtime Combat Night OG. He actually was coming off of a KO victory, and even prior to that was a kind of a controversial stoppage where there was the striking the ground opponent situation. Who you got there? Oh, Bran.
Yeah, Bran. How you doing?
She got my hat.
I'm just getting my hat ready for voting tomorrow. Make America great again, people.
And we're gonna pick up towards the end of that fight. There, Bruno just hit Nash with a high outside knee.
Yeah, like we were saying as we were commentating, Eddie was just so content with just resting his head. You can't just leave your head, exposed. You got to keep it glued, make your head and your neck work for you, and initiate that takedown. But if you're just sitting here just trying to use all just arms and your head just hanging out, you're not really utilizing it, then there's no pressure to it. Then the person is going to sink in that guillotine. It's only going to get tighter from there.
Jordan Nash is just trying to inflict pain every which way. You see like some nasty elbows from his back to the back of Bruno, and he just started cracking him. I know one point with elbows to the side of the head. You heard one just like thump, and as at the end of the fight, he ended up running over and yelling at us like, "I think I broke my elbow."
Yeah. Yeah, he's one to do. Like I say, man, these guys that do, and I also do bare knuckle fighting, MMA, bare knuckle boxing, man, those dudes there, they definitely tough. I wouldn't do that. You ain't gonna catch me doing boxing.
What a weird. Honestly, I thought this was like the weirdest submission I've seen, honestly, in a long time. Because Eddie kept putting his head back in that same spot.
Mm-hmm.
And Jordan kept grabbing his head and elbowing his head. And, the higher your head goes, you can't get elbowed. If your head's under their armpit, how do they elbow you? They can't. And the fact that he didn't make that adjustment it was kind of baffling to me. And then when he gets choked, if you look at it, his knees are on the ground. Why didn't he stand up?
Yeah, we were saying that last night when we were watching it. Like he was just, if you're gonna try to initiate, step up, windshield wiper off to the side. Don't just hang out there and just hold on. I don't know if he was trying to catch his breath or what. If he realized he felt like he was just that much strong. You can't just take down anybody just all upper body. You need to utilize your legs too.
Yeah, he was definitely didn't use the cage either. It's so hard to finish a submission with your back against the cage because you lose all your leverage points. Like you just don't have your leverage that you need. So I don't know. Like I said, it was a weird finish for me. Hats off to Jordan Nash though. Like you said, he's tough as nails. He looked like he was in really great shape for this fight. He made weight, no problem. Was hungry. I love Jordan. I love Bruno. I love Jordan. I love both those guys. Again, it's another one of those fights where you don't want to see either one of them lose. And but happy for Jordan. It was a very good win for Jordan. And I'm happy to see him get back in the win column. And I can't wait to see him get back in the fight.
Absolutely. And then our main event was Keith Speed and Cedric Louissaint. And I think I mentioned, glancing at Keith Speed, his record, he can be a spoiler. He's taken on a handful of, some, I guess you might call them like Combat Night favorites or whatever. And he comes to their town or whatever and shows up when he's, the B-side and does his thing.
Great fight. If I'm being honest, I thought Cedric won. I'm not gonna. I'll always be honest with anybody. Ask me who won their fight, whatever the case might be. And now I will also say it was a close enough fight that I can see why Keith won. I can't, however, see how a judge scored at 30-27 for Keith.
It was really weird scoring.
That is beyond me.
Yeah, what's like scored at 30-27 for Keith. Another judge scored at 30-27 for Cedric. Like, if anything, I agree with the one judge that was like 29-28 for Keith. Like, I don't think either one of these fighters won all 3 rounds, in my opinion.
No. But you know what? I could see the argument for Cedric winning all 3 rounds better than I could Keith. And that really just being because I felt like in that 3rd round, Cedric ended with a good flurry and got up from Keith taking him down and got his own, so like I could see that at least. But it was either the 2nd or the 1st round where it was like, to me, there was no doubt in my mind that Cedric won that round, like hands down. He couldn't take it from him, and the other rounds were pretty contested. They were close, they were close. But man, the wisdom of Keith's speed.
Yeah, you got your classic, veteran versus up and coming. Keith Speed's, been a pro for almost 10 years now.
Yeah, these young bucks, man, they gotta, and like Cedric ain't a young buck, don't get me wrong, but when it comes to experience versus a guy named like Keith Speed, you can't wait on a guy like this. You got to put the pressure on him. You got to stay in his face, and you just got to trust that your cardio and your youth is going to outlast his wisdom, and it's hard to use wisdom if you don't have time to think. So if you watch the fights that Keith does lose, it's because guys pedal to the gas pedal to the floor. They're bringing it to him. They're not chilling. They're bringing the fight to Keith. But as you can see here, Keith is bringing the fight to Cedric a lot. And while Cedric might have been landing some shots and moving, what does it look like? Keith is getting to control and fight at his pace and fight at his rhythm and his speed. And that's not what you want with a guy with as many fights as Keith's speed. You want to make them fight at your pace.
Yeah, that's the only reason why I would say that possibly that one judge gave all 3 rounds to Keith was just because, they say in the UFC, octagon control. I think Keith, even the one round that he might have lost, he was still continuing to come forward and, stood right there in the center as Cedric was just, bouncing around on the outside. And given as how, athletic Cedric was, like you mentioned before, I'm surprised that he didn't, bring the fight a little bit more to Keith. He allowed Keith to, conserve his energy and just essentially pick him apart, from the outside there. If Cedric were to, bring the fight to him, pressure up against the cage, like we've seen him do plenty of times, whether it's as an amateur or this as a pro, we've seen Cedric, perform a lot in the Combatagon. And every time, what does he do? He, charges forward, gets his guys up against the cage and drags them down into deep waters, finish him off ground and pound. But in this fight here, I don't know if maybe he just got, mesmerized by just the experience or just, I don't know, whatever it is by Keith, but he was just able to just, stand in there in the center and just, exchange with Keith. That's not Cedric's game, in my opinion, for what I've seen. He's not, a tit for tat striker guy, but that's what he did there last night with Keith.
Yep. And man, a good point you brought up is like, yeah, that's probably what the judge did. The judge probably doesn't know how to do their job. There's a lot of judges in the state that are trash, piss poor. They're not good judges. And that judge that scored that fight probably scored it right off those means. And you know what? The really sad thing is that I would say that probably 90% of MMA fighters, 95% of fans don't even understand the scoring criteria. You know what I mean? Like, could you imagine watching football and not understanding how someone gets a first down? Could you imagine watching football and saying you're a fan or you play the sport and not knowing how you win a game? It's like no other sport do we have this weird situation where like the scoring is like a mystery to people or they don't understand the scoring. But like, I'm going to break it down real quick. So it's impactful, striking, or grappling is the #1 scoring criteria. Not damage. The word damage is in it's impactful. What that means is if I throw a jab at somebody and they walk through it and keep coming, was it impactful? No, it was not. If I throw a jab at somebody that's been walking forward the whole fight and now they take a step back, that's impactful. It impacted the fight. That's what it means by impactful striking and impactful grappling. If my grappling, let's say I don't even get you down, but I keep shooting takedowns and now you stop striking because you're just worried about takedowns. Is my grappling impactful? Yeah, it's changing your game plan. But octagon control doesn't even come into the picture until there's no impactful grappling. There's no impactful striking. There's no there's like 3 other scoring criteria above those. And the only time we get to octagon control is like an Ngannou, Derek Lewis type fight. Don't shit happen and they got to go down. It's like, I don't know if you wrestled or not in high school, Miles, but like what they used to do is like if a wrestling duel is tied and it's 50-50, right? The score is 50-50. Then they go to, okay, well, which team got the first pin?
Yeah, that's how. Yeah, when I was in high school, yeah, that's what's who. When it came down to a tie, it's like who got the first takedown, and then they would get the decision.
Exactly, who scored first? There was no takedown. Okay, who got this? Who got that? Who got this? And it'll go all the way down to like, was anyone penalized? Okay, he got the penalty. Cool. That's who lost. And that's how the scoring is for MMA. Is like it's a line by line. So if you have impactful grappling and impactful striking, nothing else matters because we're scoring that. But yeah, judges are pretty piss poor. I don't disagree with Ben Stark about it being able to be 29-28 either way. I could see that too. But yeah, the judging. There was a few fights last night where I was like, what? How'd they do that?
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like the right guy, the right person won at least the majority of those like weird situations. And I'm not saying that Keith didn't deserve to win. It was a great fight, great performance, and he did what he had to do. I'm not mad. I just, watching the fight as a fan, not as a judge. I thought Cedric won that fight.
Like you said, it's just frustrating whenever it's not so clear. It's kind of subjective to the individuals, and the judging has probably gotten a lot better over the years, but still has some some ways to go. You guys feel like did we miss anything that you felt like needed to be mentioned? I think we covered all the finishes and the exciting decisions.
No, yeah, we pretty much talked about all the crazy finishes and the battles and the stuff like that.
We did have a comment that is worth mentioning. A reminder: loser got a shave. So Mark Warz owes a mustache to Tristan McGraw.
Mark is a man of his word. I believe Mark will be shaving. I don't know if we'll get any pageantry with it or just maybe a picture. But yeah, Mark will shave.
Oh, here's an OG chiming in. Luis Perez says, "Who you want Chieppa to fight next, Mitch?"
What's up, Louis? You fancy yourself a grappler?
It's about time for him to turn pro.
That's a fight I'd like to see. Yo, Chieppa's fought nothing but dog. I mean, Chieppa is dog, like literally Chihuahua.
Mm-hmm.
I love his walkout. Like I love Chieppa's walkout music. Hooty hoo, hooty hoo. Like it's just like it reminds me of my high school days when I thought I was a hood rat.
Early 2000s.
No, Louissaint sent me the contract. I don't think he's joking either. Louis is a high level grappler as well. That's a fun and that's an exciting fight. I'd love to see that fight happen in the near future, maybe in Fort Pierce.
One thing that you do have to contest with if you're fighting the Chihuahua is he has the absolute loudest cheering girlfriend in all of MMA.
Undefeated.
Undefeated.
Yo, and I want to understand why she taught other girls how to cheer like this too.
Yeah,
there was like 3 of them last night,
screaming nonstop.
Oh,
your girl, like Sierra does, man. She don't love you.
No,
Tell us that,
right?
That's how you know. It's like they invoke a like a banshee. I don't understand. It's just like very unique scream. But yeah, you do. You have to contest with that screaming as well. I love it though. I love the fact that she supports him so hard. You'll be hard pressed to find a woman that supports their man as much as Sierra Krieger.
Well, I think also too because she herself is a fighter. I think that's also too because she understands all the hard work and dedication that goes into it, and she can. It's not just yelling like "Get up, babe! Knock him out, babe!" No, she understands. Hey, level change, pop that jab, 2-3, come up top. Yell out, actual informative, stuff instead of just like knock his ass out, babe. Like we hear, all the time in the commentary booth that people do. Like, get up, come on, babe, you got it, babe. Come on, whoop his ass, babe. Like, say something.
Yeah,
because that ain't for babe.
Yo, quick funny story, real quick. I remember, and so I used to. My first pro fights were at the Moon in Tallahassee, and it might have been my second or my third pro fight. Second pro fight. How we used to do the Moon was there was a barricade around the cage, like a 5-foot barricade, and we put GA on the floor. So the crib was crowded, like everyone's like right on top of you, kind of how it is at Sway. And I'm in a fucking triangle. And bro, when I tell you I'm in a triangle, I'm in a triangle. This dude's got it locked in. It is deep. He's been whooping my ass the whole fight. Like, just, it is what it is. He beat me. I have my moments, but like, he was beating me. Second round, I'm in his triangle. And I got my thumb up, right? The ref told me my arms are crossed. It's like, I'm going to put my thumb in the air, and all I can hear is Brandy. Elbow him. Fucking do something, babe. Elbow him. Do something. Don't just sit there. Bro,
Did you elbow him?
listen, Miles, I was in a triangle like this. My arms are crossed. I'm just doing all I can to keep my thumb in the air so the ref don't stop it.
Uh-huh.
So then the ref stops the fight, right? And before it was Frank Gentile. He was a boxing commissioner at one point in time. He stops the fight. I jump up with my thumb, and I was like, I got my fucking thumb in the air. And like I just like shove it in his face. And he's like, throws me back in the triangle and goes, go. Bro. He threw me back in the triangle. I was in a safe spot where I was at in the triangle. Like I was getting choked, but I was like, I had a little air pocket, you know? Bro, when he put me back in the triangle, 0 air pocket. 0. No air pocket. And I was just screaming at him about my thumb being up. So he throws me back in the triangle. I do end up getting out, and I do end up guillotining the guy in the 3rd round with like no time left and to win the fight. But man, I was so mad at Brandy after that. I was like, yo, don't you ever tell me to do something, babe.
She's just saying what she would be doing, I guess, if it was her.
Yeah. She'd probably put him in a rear naked choke, put him to sleep.
That's her specialty. All right, guys. Well, we had an exciting night last night. Good night of fights. Great event. Costume party was fun. And we will be back in action on November 23rd. That will be our last event of the year. Rise of the Combat Night Warrior in Fort Pierce. Looking forward to that. You got any news on that you want to share? Or?
Sorry, I was reading the comments.
Oh yeah, Lewis was over there following up. So
yeah, I'll get with him later. For November, any comments on November 23rd?
Yes.
It's going to be a banger, just like we always have, man. It's going to be a banger. We got some crazy fights. Daniel Donaldson will be making his comeback fight. That's right, guys. Dan Donaldson is a pro athlete. Don't get it twisted. He ain't just coming off the couch. My man is coming for blood. He's going to come in there. He's going to look to hurt somebody. So I'm excited for that fight.
Junior too.
Junior's fighting as well. Junior will be fighting as well. I'm excited to see both of them fight. Man, you can expect plenty of antics and fun times with this next event to end the year. I can't wait.
Well, in the meantime, make sure you're following us on Instagram because there's tons of highlights and reels coming out about last night's event. You might have got to see a little bit of the stuff here, but there's tons of stuff going on there. And these fights will be posting from this event here in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that. But thanks for joining us for this Combat Night Pro Duval wrap-up show. So we'll catch you on the pre-show for Rise of Warrior. The Friday before the show, 9:15. That's how we're going to be hitting it. Friday before the show, 9:15. Post show Sunday at 9:15. So stay tuned.
In the stream, Ramsey.
In the stream.